Good evening. Good evening. Wow. Welcome. What an amazing audience. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. My name is Satwinder Samra. I teach architecture at the University of Sheffield School of Architecture. Some of you might recognize me from The Dengineers, which is a show that encourages young people to become fascinated and interested in architecture. I think we've done 7 series now. It's worth a look. I also do some practice work with William Matthews Associates. Tonight, I'm going to be your host. We're going to spend the next sort of hour and a half together. You are in my capable hands, but also we're going to be joined by an absolutely wonderful group of people who are going to share some of their stories this evening. How does that sound? Does that sound okay with everybody? Nobody turned up for a lecture on liminal space and Greek architecture, did they? You're all in the right room. Yeah? Okay, so can I get a wave from the back? Yeah, just to make sure that everybody can hear me fine. I've got some friends at the back. Wonderful, wonderful. This is the closest I will ever get to live at the Apollo. So I'm just going to enjoy this moment just for 5 seconds. Just going to dream. Right. So welcome to Portland Place for our Building Stories event. This is a regular series of digital and in-person talks that were launched last year, where we look at RIBA award-winning buildings, inviting architects to share their stories behind their projects and give us some insights into their experiences. Wow, architects are going to talk about their work. Wonderful, wonderful. This evening, we're celebrating and hearing all about the winner of the Stephen Lawrence 2022 prize. This is awarded to projects led by early career architects. I think that might mean that they're a little bit younger, or it might mean that they're inexperienced, but do not worry, these architects are not inexperienced. They are world class, and I'm delighted to be sharing the stage with them. This year, the winner of the project is the Hackney School of Food, designed by Surman Weston architects. Yeah, wow, well, yeah, absolutely. Isn't it wonderful to hear architects, clients, users, the general public cheering architects? That's a wonderful thing. We need more of that, don't we? There should be more cheering at these events, people smiling, people encouraged to understand more about this wonderful subject that we're all passionate about. So, in the spirit of building stories, we have an amazing lineup of guests joining us this evening. We're going to have Jessica Neal, Chief Executive of the Stephen Lawrence Day Foundation. Jessica and myself are going to have a little chat about the foundation shortly, which is going to be good. Then Tom Surman and Percy Weston, yes, they do have surnames. They're going to tell us the architectural story of this wonderful building. Then I'm absolutely delighted that Louise Nichols, who's from the Hackney School of Food, and Mark Thompson, they are maybe the most important people in the room, apart from the technical team and the wonderful people who are looking after the sound, who are the clients of this wonderful building. So I'm so glad that they're here. We're also very, very pleased to have Henry Dimbleby here. Henry's an MBE, he's a co-founder of the Hackney School of Food with Louise, and they're going to share some of their initiatives around this idea of food and why food is so important, not just in terms of everyday life, but also in terms of what it means for someone who might be at an early sort of stage of their education. Wow, okay, so how are we doing so far? Does that sound all right? I always like to kind of, yeah, let's have a clap. Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's wonderful to connect with the audience. I don't feel like I'm on my own. I feel like I'm here with friends. We are all friends this evening. Wonderful. And hopefully we still will be in about an hour and a half. Let's see how this goes. So first, a little bit about the award. The Stephen Lawrence Prize was founded by Baroness Doreen Lawrence and the Marco Goldschmied Foundation in 1998. It's in memory of Stephen Lawrence, who was an aspiring architect before his tragic and untimely death in 1993. The prize is intended to encourage fresh architectural talent and and until 2022 rewarded the best examples of projects that have a construction budget of less than £1 million. And as of 2023, they're changing the rules by the sounds of it, will solely recognise the work of early career architects. I'm also absolutely delighted that Matthew Goldsmead from the Marco Goldsmead Foundation is here. Lovely to have you here. And also we have Antoinette Bramble, the Deputy Mayor of Hackney. So, that is wonderful. That's my introduction done. I feel much more relaxed now. We're up and rolling. Everything's going fine. You're all relaxed. You're all glad that you're in the right place. We are at the RIBA, apparently the house of architecture, the home of architecture. But what's most important is that you're all here to listen to these wonderful stories. We're kind of going to be touching upon community, the idea of empowerment, the idea of food, also the idea of opportunity and making sure that ultimately, all these environments that we create are inclusive and encourage diversity. So people like you and people like me can engage in a positive future. First of all, I'm delighted to welcome Jessica Neal, who is the Chief Executive of the Stephen Lawrence Day Foundation. Let's have a big round of applause. Welcome, welcome. We have a little bit of music, because that just helps.
I think it's supposed to help me relax. It's not working.
You will be fine.
Thank you so
You will
much,
be fine. Wonderful. So first of all, just tell me a little bit about why you think the award is so important and what it actually means for the foundation.
Yeah, it's incredibly important for the foundation. I think its significance in the first instance for Baroness Lawrence is about continuation of Stephen's legacy, about keeping his name at the forefront of architecture. He aspired to be an architect, and had he not been tragically murdered at the age of 18, I'm sure he would be achieving extraordinary things in his own name, but unfortunately we'll never know whether that will be the case, and so we have a sense of responsibility as a team to carry his name forward, and the prize has been a fantastic platform for that, so it has great significance to Baroness Lawrence. And then for the foundation, the significance for us is exposing young people from marginalised backgrounds to career pathways that they might never have heard of, and saying to them that absolutely you belong in this space, and that actually different perspectives add real value, particularly when we're talking about building our society.
What have you found? Yeah, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What have you found, or are there any sort of examples that stand out for you where you've been able to directly help individuals to kind of reach their potential?
Yeah, absolutely. So Stephen's legacy, as you know, spans many decades, and the Stephen Lawrence Day Foundation in its early years has been able to provide scholarships and bursaries for young people to study architecture. We have a fantastic partnership with the London School of Architecture. We work really closely with our partners at RIBA, and of course with the Marco Goldsmead Foundation, who are kind of integral in building Stephen's legacy. Marco's support of Baroness Lawrence in the early days is why we're all here today to celebrate Stephen's legacy, so incredibly personally important.
Wonderful. And is there any particular way that, we have a wonderful audience here, is there any way that people could get involved or maybe donate some time or resource? What's the best way for them to reach out?
There'll be a QR code on the screen behind me later. Scan it and donate. There's been a huge amount that's been done over the last 3 decades, but there is so much more work to be done in architecture and beyond, and so we really need your support. I think there's an external perception that the Stephen Lawrence Day Foundation is an army of hundreds of people, but actually we're a really small and outrageously ambitious team, and we need you behind us to get some of these changes made. So yeah, please do be generous.
So absolutely, yeah. And I do think there's something really valuable and important in these kinds of organisations often are working with limited resources.
Yeah.
And I think, if we can all help, not just support, but spread the word, then more people have an understanding and there is knowledge, and it might just make a difference to someone, who's at the moment might be 9, 10, 12 years old, thinking about what they're going to do with their future, and they can see an opportunity. Absolutely. And I think that can be delivered through the wonderful initiatives. Okay, right. So now I understand that there's a very little short clip of a film that you have that we're going to share now.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to hand over to you for a few moments where you're going to share some other thoughts about the foundation. Is that okay?
That's marvellous.
All right, okay. All right, I think that's a cue for a film which will appear. Here we go. Wonderful.
All Britain can be.
In our families, our lives, and our communities.
We will make the changes that we need to see.
Raising our voices in all we do.
We will educate everyone that he is part of all of us
too. And we will never forget Stephen Lawrence.
Help us create a legacy of change.
There's the QR code I told you about. Everyone, it is such a privilege to be here with you all tonight. I just want to extend my gratitude to the RIBA team for inviting us to speak to you. It's also a real privilege to represent the Stephen Lawrence Day Foundation and work alongside Baroness Lawrence as a temporary custodian of Stephen's legacy for as long as she allows me to stay. As we mark the 30th anniversary of Stephen's tragic passing, the passage of time from one generation to the next serves as a really powerful reminder to us all of our collective responsibility to respect our shared histories, embrace our individual narratives, and carry the baton forward in pursuit of justice and in uplifting future generations. Tonight, we also pay tribute to the extraordinary legacy of Marco Goldschmied, a dear friend and supporter of Baroness Lawrence and a passionately active ally long before it became popular to uplift others in the way that he did. The idea of our individual legacies intertwining to form a blueprint for those who come after us is both empowering and comforting when we think of those that we've lost. The Hackney School of Food exemplifies how we can repurpose our histories by acknowledging the beauty and pain of past scars and transforming them into a hopeful, purposeful foundation for future generations. Surman Weston's toolkit, designed to inspire the repurposing of other retired buildings, extends this concept of evolution, demonstrating how shared learning, coalition, collaboration and community can become crucial elements for empowering meaningful societal change. The evolution of the Stephen Lawrence Prize and the selection of the Hackney School of Food as the 2022 winner powerfully embodies these values of learning, repurposing and looking forward. They also emphasise the importance of centering marginalised voices in our society, using architecture as a potent catalyst for change. Stephen was an ordinary young man whose life and death have left an extraordinary impact on British society. The scale of his legacy after just 18 short years on this earth reminds us of the transformative power of education and mentorship in nurturing the next generation. The growing involvement of young voices in the jury for the Stephen Lawrence Prize demonstrates a strong commitment by all partners to cultivating future leaders. Through the Stephen Lawrence Day Foundation, we strive to inspire a more equitable, inclusive society and create opportunities for marginalised young people across the UK. We work in classrooms, encouraging to dream without limits and to recognise the vital role of learning in achieving those dreams. We foster connections within diverse communities and offer marginalised young people access to professional opportunities across sectors and industries. As we approach the 30th anniversary and continue our work towards racial justice, let us remember that our ambitions must be bolder if we're to succeed. We must consider the intersections between racial justice, economic justice, and climate justice. Our leaders and those in positions of power do not have the answers to society's most profound challenges. So true equity will require centering marginalised voices, fostering collaboration and community, and empowering the next generation to become the architects of a more hopeful future, opening us up to new and previously unimaginable perspectives. This Stephen Lawrence Day, we invite you all to join us in continuing Stephen's legacy and donating by taking tangible action within your own sphere of influence, ensuring that the next 30 years are meaningfully different from the last, and working together to build a fairer, kinder, and more equitable society in his honour. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Very, very powerful and very moving words, and we get a real sense of the importance of the foundation, but also the fact that, you know, we all can have a role within the future of the organisation, and I think that's really, really important. So thank you so much. Okay, so next, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Tom Surman and Percy Weston from Surman Weston. These are our award-winning architects. It's okay. Please, please, please. It's fine. It's fine. Come on. I'm going to hand over now to Percy and Tom. They have 20 minutes, and then they're going to be joined on stage by Henry Dimbleby, who's going to share some thoughts as well. So, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Oh, excuse me.
Safe to say, we've not done this very often, and there's quite a few more people here than we were expecting. There's also a really wonderful turnout from the client team, which is great, but it does kind of mean that you guys are going to know when we're post-rationalising and bending the truth. So just keep that to yourselves. Speaking of bending the truth, I can think of someone else who might have been doing that this afternoon. Anyway, so the fact that we're here this evening is testament to what a dream project this has been to be involved in, and that's largely down to the amazing group of people that we were privileged to work with. So before Percy talks you through how we approached the project, I'd just like to say some thank yous. Firstly, thank you to our amazing clients, LEAP Federation and Chefs in Schools and their patrons. Thanks to our fellow design team members, Structure Workshop, Peter Deere and Jean-Julien. Thanks to our friends at Modern Arc, the contractors who meticulously built the project despite the very tight budget, a fact that they're quite keen to remind us of. And thanks to Claire from Art Hoppers, who beautifully transformed Jean's drawings into the murals that adorn the outside of the building. A big shout out to all those that run the School of Food day to day and make it such a special place. So,
sorry, I'll stop doing that.
Come on, man. Chef extraordinaire Tom and his team, head gardener Lidka, Mark, Miranda, and the many volunteers that tend the gardens. So finally, before I hand over to Percy, a special thank you to Louise Nichols, who you'll hear from shortly. Louise is the executive head teacher of the LEAP Federation, and it's fair to say that the project faced plenty of hurdles along the way. But Louise relentlessly drove things forward. We had our tense moments, but she trusted us, she challenged us, and I'd like to think it was a fun and rewarding design process. Although Louise might have a different opinion, you'll find out shortly. So, over to Percy.
Hello. So, while the Stephen Lawrence Award is ostensibly an architecture prize, we really feel in this case it's much more about a prize about the purpose of architecture rather than architecture for architecture's sake. So what architecture does to help enable this wonderful School of Food rather than what it is. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we approached that idea with this project, and I'm going to introduce you to the project for the people who don't know much about it. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay, good. All right, so here we go. The Hackney School of Food is on it's on the site of Mandeville Primary School in Clapton in Hackney, and it's a former caretaker's house and garden. And in this area, sadly, 41% of children leave primary school either overweight or obese. So there's a real problem in the area. And as an indicator of deprivation, 60% of children are on free school meals in this area as well. So this is linked to poor diet, which is in turn linked to a lack of education about healthy food. So here we go. This is what we transformed the building into. So from a caretaker's house to this food education community hub with gardens for growing food and kitchens to cook the food and eat the healthy food. And so, yeah, this is the main cooking classroom. And so, although this is on a primary school site, the project is both for children and adults in the local community in and around Hackney. And I've been informed that to date, over 8,000 children have benefited from it from over 30 schools so far. And that's, it's only been open for 2 years, or almost 3 years, but which is great. So I'm going to kick off with some photos of kind of before and after of the school. So we first encountered it in 2018, and this is what it looked like when we visited the old caretaker's house. It was kind of quite a bleak house that had not been lived in for a good 3 years, I think, before we encountered it. And as you saw before, this is what the interior was converted into. And then this is what the outside used to look like from the caretaker's garden. So it's right next to the school playground, this garden. And so it's completely overgrown and just full of old kind of flat footballs when we went there. And then this is what it was kind of converted into. So this is the kitchen garden where all the plants are edible. There's an outdoor kitchen, a dining space, a big pizza oven, and then all these planters cooking food to be cooked within the kitchen. And then when we move outside, so this is what it used to look like again before. And when we did a consultation early on in the project, and one of the children mentioned that between friends they used to call this the spooky house. So, and you can kind of see why. I mean, it's quite a bleak day, so that doesn't do it any favours. But yeah, the spooky house. And hearing this really influenced how we designed the project to interact with the public realm, with the local community, with the children at the school. So we wanted to try and turn this eyesore into something welcoming and something the local community would feel they kind of want to approach and could be proud of. So this is what it was transformed to out from the street. So there's new gates, new entrances, new fencing, and there was also this kind of new mural and signage, which we work with an illustrator that we know. So for this event, a lot of this event is about, we were kind of instructed to tell the story of the project from our perspective. And it's been an interesting process for us going back to the start of the project and kind of looking back through how we came to be working on it, how the project evolved, how the design evolved, and how it hopefully got better along the way. So the project was an invited competition. We were up against two other practices. I think we were the smallest studio out of the three practices. And up until that point, our studio had mostly worked on private residential work. And so to be invited to have a go at this project was really a great opportunity for us to work on a non-residential project that was going to be able to reach far more people and benefit far more people than our kind of day-to-day work. So, and that was something Tom and I and the practice as a whole kind of had been wanting to do for a long time. So we really threw everything at it when we were given the opportunity and poured time into the presentation and the design and made lots of models, which the design all changed from when we made the models, but so be it. This was the master plan of the site model. And then we made a detailed 1:20 model of the conversion of the caretaker's house, which we showed at the jury presentation. This is an interior shot, and we were quite happy with this model when we finished with it, and we thought, this is going to show the design really well. And then the day before the presentation, we realised that our proposal had kind of missed probably the simplest and the best opportunity of the project. And rather than try and cram everything into this tiny 2-storey house across 2 levels with its low ceilings, instead we should just strip out all the walls, all the ceilings, and kind of make it into one dramatic space. And we did slightly confuse the judges when we were presenting this scheme. We went back to the drawing board. We presented this scheme that was kind of completely different to the model. But anyway, we got the gig, so it doesn't matter. So where was I? This is the interior, as you can see. And you can see here, hang on, I've got a pointer here somewhere. There we go. This is where the floor used to be in the house. And the engineers made us put this steel beaming because they said it would fall down if we didn't. So we listened to them. But I think it would have been all right personally. But anyway. But so from the start, the client brief was always pretty ambitious from the client team. We had to be able to teach 30 students at any one time in this space, and the house, after we'd stripped out all the walls and floors, was only 50 square meters. So it was quite a tight space. Every square meter really had to do a job and be purposeful. And as the project, another point of the project was, it was intended to be a prototype for hopefully a nationwide kind of network of schools of food. So that really influenced how we designed it. And so the details had to be simple, they had to be robust, they had to be adaptable, so we could use them on other buildings if need be. But they also had to be elegant, because we're architects, and economical. And the economical element was really critical to the viability of the project as a whole. So to deliver this, we developed an approach of always trying to deliver the maximum educational benefit for the money spent. So really throughout the design process, we always asked ourselves, is this the maximum bang for the buck? That's what we started to say in the studio. And so every time there was a question that came up that, well, should we do this? Should we do this? Is this the maximum bang for the buck? What does it do? Is it worth it? So one example of this is that we didn't create any new openings in the external envelope in the walls. So all the existing windows and doors, door openings were retained. We did, apart from one, this big one here. There's always an exception. But we felt that was worth it for the signage, which looks basically, that's the sign that looks over the road. But as much of the money as possible was spent on the red area at the bottom, below this kind of splashback level. And so that's where the cooking happens, where the learning happens. And then above that, everything was treated as lightly as possible. So the kitchen is designed to have the quality of a professional kitchen, but to be fully accessible for both primary school children and adults. And to achieve this, we designed and developed these height-adjustable units here. Let's get this pointer. And so they can be moved upwards, up and down, and so they can suit children and adults of all age. Then above this red datum line, we crafted an approach that rather than trying to paper over the metaphorical and literal cracks in the building, we tried to deliver a design that embraced these things as part of the story of the former life of the building. So it seemed fitting that in a school context that you show the working and the history of the building, or the ingredients, if you will, excuse the pun, and so telling the story of the building. So things like the insulation are left exposed on the roof up here, so it's easy for a child to understand, this is what keeps the building warm, or just, as the case may be, just ask why there's cauliflower on the ceiling. Anyway, but yeah, so where walls were removed, so if you look back here, where walls were removed, we didn't try and patch them in, we just left the gaps in the plaster and painted it. So again, it's easily legible for someone that's in there. And the same can be said for where we did remove windows and doors, and so we just blocked it in and painted it. So it's a very simple detail and cost-effective. Outside, we took a similar strategy using a slightly contrasting brick. So the brick on the right is the brickwork of the original building, which is quite a kind of unlovely engineering brick, and then we contrasted it with this subtly contrasting red brick, which is different in size, color, and texture. This photo was taken during one of the slightly more tense parts of the project, when we were summoned to a meeting with the head teacher, Louise, about why the brick didn't match. So, and then we had to carefully explain, while trying not to sound like pretentious architects, probably failing, that this indeed was intentional, and it was going to look good in the end, although we both had a moment. Anyway, lesson learned. I'm going to hand over to Tom again, and he's going to talk about the gardens and some of the other community elements of the project. Over to Tom.
Okay, so I won't be too long. The School of Food doesn't just teach children how to cook delicious, healthy food. There's just as much learning that goes on in the gardens. And as Tom and Lidka will testify, children are far more likely to taste a beetroot or some kale if they've actually grown it themselves. So in the gardens, the same logic as in the kitchen is applied. Minimum spend, I should say, for maximum educational impact. It is applied. So here you can see a bird's eye view of the kitchen garden, and the space is working really hard. There's a lot crammed in here. So we have a pizza oven at the back, fire pit in the middle, raised beds with the edible produce, covered teaching and dining area here, and Lidka's wonderful perimeter planting. And we designed the beds so that they rake up in height. They rake up in height from the front of the garden here to the back at the pizza oven, where they raise up to worktop height. And one of the reasons for this was it means that there's a comfortable working height for all ages and all abilities. And I really love this photo because I think it captures nicely how we always hoped this space would be used, with the kids playing in amongst this maze of kind of wonderful produce that Lidka's grown. And so kind of carrying on that theme of minimum spend for maximum impact, the cafe-style awning that you can see here is a really simple and fairly cost-effective way to provide some much-needed outdoor covered space. It means that on sunny days, Tom, who's here, the wonderful kind of head chef and lead educator at the School of Food, can teach outside, and it also means that the kids get a chance to eat outside. In a similar vein, rainwater from the roof of the main teaching kitchen is collected in this agricultural water butt. The kids then fill up their watering cans from the butt and then go off and tend to their produce. While they're filling up their cans, it gives Tom and Lidka a brief moment to kind of teach them about the importance of water conservation. And it's something that every time we go back and visit, there always seems to be a huddle of kids around here kind of filling up their watering cans. So it's working, I think. And so just a bit of an aside, kind of halfway through the build of the teaching kitchen, which you can see here, and the kitchen garden, we realized that we were missing a bit of an opportunity with the gardens. We had a conversation with Louise where she mentioned that this area of the school site was relatively underused. It was kind of just basically a kind of patch of grass that the kids didn't really use that much. And so we were asked to work up a master plan for a wider site. So we created this master plan drawing, and then we got the go-ahead to knock down a wall which ran along here and used to bound the caretaker site from the main school site. And this was a real kind of revelation in the project, because it's massively improved the educational offer of the site. So now, as fundings become available, the school are kind of organically implementing elements from this master plan. So there's now a greenhouse on the site, there's a fruit orchard, they have beehives, they have chickens, and as more and more funding becomes available, we're hopeful that the kind of master plan gets implemented in full. We're currently in the process of looking at turning this into a multi-use education space, which will also potentially expand the opportunities for external hire. And so, well, just bear with me a second. As well as the huge number of children that have benefited from the School of Food in its short existence, they've also been able to host an amazing range of community events. They've put on winter fairs, summer barbecues, sustainable cookery classes. They've partnered with food charities such as My Grateful Kitchen and Chili Con Carne. So it's been lovely for us to see the space programmed in the way that it was talked about during the initial brief. And finally, to wrap up, as we've already mentioned, the School of Food was always envisioned as a prototype, and this was specifically mentioned in the original brief. And over the last 18 months or so, we've been working with Chefs in Schools, the Hackney School of Food, and LEAP Federation to deliver this toolkit. And so the toolkit is a collection of lesson learned and advice that we've all kind of gleaned from the project over its short life. It contains a whole bunch of advice on everything from how to change food culture in a school to how to design, operate, and sustain a school of food. So it's been a wonderful thing to have worked on over the last 18 months, and it's our great hope that this helps others realise similar projects to the Hackney School of Food. And before I go, I'd like to say one final thank you, and that is to the Stephen Lawrence Day Foundation. It means so much to us as a small practice to have won this award. We're immensely proud of it. And we'd also like to say thank you to Marco Goldschmidt Foundation, and we encourage everyone to check out the work of both foundations. So I'm now going to hand over to Henry Dimbleby. Henry is the author of the School Food Plan and the National Food Strategy, and is one of the founding partners of the Hackney School of Food. Thanks.
I've seen and worked on actually a number of projects with Tom and Percy, from a tiny little shed they did in our next door neighbour's garden up to much bigger structures, and obviously with the Hackney School of Food in the middle. And I think what is extraordinary about them as architects, and certainly quite unusual in my experience, and I'm sorry if I'm about to insult half the audience, is that they have an extraordinary way of subverting their egos to the project. So a lot of architects, the project is about the architect. Whereas for Tom and Percy and everything I've seen them do, they apply extraordinary dedication, extraordinary creativity, extraordinary listening and nuance, but it is all about the project. And I think you see that when you go, and please do come and see Hackney School of Food, because it really is a place that makes your heart sing, and that is in the partnership between them and the way they work, particularly with Mark and Louise. I think I'm meant to be telling you about the purpose of why we did it. And there is a kind of broader purpose to this, and it really goes back. I was asked by the government to do some work on school food way back in 2013, and even then it was clear that we are in trouble when it comes to our food system, and it is even clearer now. The NHS by 2035 is projected to spend more on type 2 diabetes, which is one diet-related ill health condition, than it does today on treating all cancers. And what that means, if we don't stop that, is that the NHS is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's going to suck money from every other area of government, because it's the last thing the government can let fall down. And at the same time, Andy Haldane, who was the former chief economist of the Bank of England, made a speech a few weeks ago saying that ill health is the biggest driver of lack of productivity in our economy, and diet-related disease is by far the biggest cause of non-communicable ill health. And so what you'll see in this dystopian future, if we don't stop this, is the NHS getting bigger and bigger and bigger, sucking in money from the rest of government, while our economy shrinks and the tax receipts as a result get less. And it is a future of both misery and impoverishment. And that is why changing the food system is so important. And when we were looking at, for the School of Food plan, about how you do that, how do you actually go about changing an incredibly complicated system, we worked out that you actually needed to do two things. Yes, the state needed to intervene, and the state needed to make some quite big interventions, and some of the things they did as a result of our work were put cookery on the curriculum, compulsory up to the age of 14. They introduced universal free school meals for everyone in infants, something that absolutely fantastically now in London, the mayor is expanding to everyone in primary schools, and in some boroughs, I think Tower Hamlets, they're expanding it to everyone up to the age of 16. So you need those big government levers. But every single school we went to, and I've been to a lot of schools now, had one thing in common. They had someone like Louise who decided it wasn't good enough. They had someone in that community who cared, who said, we need to do better. And funnily enough, it was during that time that the kind of Hackney School of Food story began. My children were at school in another one of Louise's schools in Hackney, and the chef, for reasons that I'll tell you about at the bar later but can't say publicly, it wasn't illegal, left the school. And I was a governor at the time, and I tweeted, we're looking for a new chef for our school. And the manager at Ottolenghi's posh restaurant, which is called Nopi, knew that the head chef there, an amazing woman called Nicole Pisani, was fed up serving rich people food and wanted to do something with more purpose. And he put her in touch with me, and she got in touch with me and said, can I try? And I went to Louise and said, the head chef of Ottolenghi's restaurant wants to come and cook food in our school. And Louise did what now has become an archetypal behaviour with Louise, which said, oh, for goodness sake, Henry, live in the real world. Don't be ridiculous. And then you go away, and then you wake up next morning about 6:30, and you've got a long email from Louise going, absolutely fantastic. We're going to have the interviews next week. This kind of amazing leaning into the project. Anyway, Nicole worked at Gayhurst School, and she then managed to turn around the food there. And we kind of worked out how to do it. And another friend of ours said to Louise and me and Nicole, you need to tell other people how to do this. And so we founded this charity, Chefs in Schools. We worked in a lot of schools. But we didn't really know. We'd done one part of the brief, which was the food and how do you cook the food. But we hadn't really cracked how do you teach cookery. And that was when we had the idea to do this partnership with the Federation and Chefs in Schools to create the Hackney School of Food. The future for this, as Tom said, it is just one little school in Hackney serving, actually, what Percy didn't say was that those 3 years were through COVID, so there's quite a lot of that period where we were closed, and we're now teaching a lot more children. But it is one school in Hackney, and I now see the work that we're doing as kind of taking a good virus and trying to inject the system with a virus that says it is possible to do better. There aren't any excuses. And the most exciting thing about the work that these guys are doing and have done is when we see people copy us. So without our doing anything, someone comes along and they take the work elsewhere. And that is what that pack is about. So what I'd like to end by saying is, you can sometimes feel powerless in the machine that is the food system, a cog, forced by the commercial powers of the supermarkets and the FMCG companies to eat crap to get ill, but actually, as a cog, you yourself can move the machine. So if you know a school or someone who works in a school, or you have children who go to a school, please go and see them. Go in a friendly way. If you're a parent, ask to have food with the children and tell them about what we're doing. Spread the word, and we would love to help them in a big way or in a small way. But please, if you can do one thing after this evening, just tell at least one other person about what these guys are doing, because that way, step by step, we'll change our society for the better. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. What an absolutely wonderful story from Tom and Percy. How do we do more with less? I think that's what you said, isn't it? Yeah, not the other way around. That's fine. No, absolutely. And the other thing for me was this idea about being strategic. Often architecture is about the object or about the building, and we often forget that one can make a number of moves within a broader site or a broader context. And so when you see a project that does that, it's so empowering. And often we see projects where that hasn't really been thought about or engendered, so people end up with a product and then they wonder why it doesn't work later on, because there wasn't that strategic thinking as part of the plan. So absolutely wonderful to see that. And the positive legacy of the toolkit is wonderful. And also from Henry, just this absolutely fundamental issue about us being active participants in our communities rather than being passengers. And I think that rally from you, Henry, is something that I will definitely take away from this evening. So thank you so much. Right, I think we're about halfway through now. Is everybody okay? Everybody's all right. I'm just doing a little check of the room. You can wave or not wave or smile or nod. Yeah, people are trying to be serious again. It's okay. It's okay. Maybe a wave from the back just to make sure. Yeah, thank you so much. Wonderful. So we've got a special guest this evening, and I'm delighted to introduce James Massiah. James is a poet and musician from South London whose work explores his day-to-day experiences of life, love and labour in London through performance, writing and visual media. He has an ongoing series of new poems, with Volume 4 recently released last year, and hosts the monthly poetry show on NTS Radio. Welcome, James.
One and a half poems for you this evening. You look great, by the way. It's nice to be here. 1.5 poems for you this evening. I wrote one called Chefin', which didn't quite make the cut. So we're going to do this one. For any drill fans inside, you know why. But we're going to do this one instead, which is about the Alexandra Road estate, where some friends of mine and I hung out a lot in lockdown, illegally. Living in a long rise. Oh, sorry, I should get some context. So, it's like a long estate. It's not like a tall estate, it's a long estate. We were all kind of mash up and just being like, wow, what if we called these long rises instead of high rises? We thought it was really fun at the time, so, yeah. Living in a long rise, north side, 2 flats. Great sound, great view, great friends, great food. Long rise, Abbey Road, super close, super close. I bring my lover, super close, super close, super close. I met a lover, she's a ghost. She's a ghost, she's a ghost. I miss you enough, long time, long time, long time. I saw you at the long rise. Now we're both seeing other guys. Remembering that one time drinking near your high rise. Look into my high eyes and tell me if you ever see another day, another night with me and you and me. Getting up that long rise, long rise, long rise. Long day, short night, sunrise, sunrise. Northwest, long rise, rock stars nearby. Little Venice, average size, but feeling super long tonight. I'm gonna ride, ain't gonna ride. Pick up a wine and play it safe. Walk along just where it's paved, and I'll never fall in love again. You live alone and hate me leave. I want to come, I seek reprieve. Come meet me at the long rise, long rise, long rise. It will be like old times, old times, old times. Me and you was all new, and now you wish you never knew the me you met at long rise, long rise, long rise. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That we could hear a pin drop in the room. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a good thing I'm reading a poem and not rapping, because that wouldn't be quite so much fun if I was doing a rap show and there was that much silence, so yeah.
Do you think we could do a duo at some point in the future?
Perhaps.
Perhaps. That'll do for
perhaps.
me. That'll do for me.
Yeah.
Where can we find out more about your poetry, or where can we hear more about the wonderful work that you're doing?
Okay, so forgive me, my eyes running. It's either someone's got a cat that I was talking to, because I've got a cat fur allergy and I can't stop itching my eye. Excuse me, forgive me. So this book that I read from is called New Poems Volume 4, self-published, and it's just a bunch of poems that I kind of wrote after nights out, just to kind of remember the magic of the moment. And I record the audio, they go on my Bandcamp, and then I printed this as a book that you can purchase on my Instagram, link bio, click da-da-da, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Check out the Instagram. I did that earlier. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Isn't this amazing? We've got a little bit of everything tonight. A little bit of everything. I'm not going to do any breakdancing, so you can relax. I'm so glad that wasn't in the script. Right, moving on. Now, our next guests, I'm super delighted that they're here, but also they're going to join me on stage now. We've got Louise Nichols, who's a co-founder of Hackney School of Food, executive head teacher of the school, where Hackney School of Food is cited, and also Mark Thompson, who's a head teacher of Mandeville Primary School, as well as being the Hackney School of Food landlord. Please come to stage. Come to the stage. So this is where we, because it's going so well, we get a chair. So we're just going to have a little chat for about 10 minutes. So first of all, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. You know, often within architectural discourse or architectural kind of worlds, often there isn't many opportunities for clients to really share their stories. And I think it's so important that clients are not just seen but heard, but also we can learn so much from gaining a better understanding of what impact our projects can have. So I'm so pleased that you're here. So Louise, perhaps you could just tell me a little bit about, you know, the birth of the Hackney School of Food. You know, where did this kind of come from? I know Henry's kind of touched upon this. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about that.
I think Henry's taken the motivation for it and explained where the ideas came from behind it. But we also at Mandeville, and there's lots of people here from Mandeville tonight, we had this amazing piece of land and the building, and it was sitting there not being used. And the idea that we could do something exciting that would take education beyond where we had it so far, so something we could do really excitingly with school food. And the national curriculum, worryingly enough, had just started making children have to learn about cookery. So it was in the curriculum from 2014. We had no way of doing that. So we saw this building, we saw this lovely space, and we wanted to make it all come together. And we did. And it's just been such an exciting project. As you've heard from all the amazing people that were involved, we've had a really good laugh along the way as well.
No, there's definitely a sense that you all get on, and you all still get on, and hopefully you'll still get on after everyone's shared their own stories. So that's good. That's good. I just wanted to know a little bit more about the fact that there was this kind of, you know, this spare building that was just kind of hanging around waiting for something to happen. You know, what was the impetus behind someone saying, you know, hang on a minute, we've got this building, let's do something with it?
Well, the buildings, there's quite a few of these buildings across the country which are old premises managers' houses, or caretakers as they used to be called. And that was because in the old days, caretakers used to have to go in and stoke the boilers in the middle of the night. And nowadays, they don't have to do it. It's all electric and it's all fired off. So you don't need a premises manager sitting on site. So these buildings are sitting empty across the country. Hence why when we started talking to the architects and we had this idea, it was like, not only could be the Hackney School of Food, there could be the Clapham School of Food and the Sheffield School of Food and the wherever School of Food, was that there are premises managers' houses sitting on education property that could be converted into something really exciting in the community. Not just schools of food, there are other ideas out there too, but they're buildings that are empty.
So definitely something about, sometimes things are just right there, aren't they? They're just waiting.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for someone to unlock that door and say, is there something possible here? Wonderful. And what was the impact of lockdown? You know, that kind of, because the project, you know, that must have been tough.
People have touched on it, and I know that the contractors are here tonight, and they will also share the.
Can we have a big round of applause for the contractors? Yeah.
Modern art.
Again, we don't thank the contractors enough. You know, so I think that's really important. I'm really glad you're here. A big shout out. Thank you. Right, sorry, you were locked down.
Yeah. So lockdown. So we were in the middle of the build and suddenly lockdown hit, and it was a very strange time. But where the School of Food suddenly came to life, and I think we all started to see the magic that was possible there, was that everybody was, lots of people, not in education, we weren't furloughed, but everyone else seemed to be furloughed and have time on their hands. So suddenly, hordes of volunteers were heading towards Lidcombe saying, can we come and help in the garden? Can we dig up those tree roots? As Percy and Tom said, the original plan was not to use, we didn't have that garden, we didn't have budget for it, but all these furloughed people, they were from all fields, there were chefs, there were everyone from all different fields came and helped literally dig out the tree roots and make that garden work. And that was a real bit of joy that happened in lockdown. Everything else was quite downbeat and hard, but that was something really wonderful about that space that brought people together. And I think that feeling continued when lockdown finally lifted and we were able to open the school in the way that it had originally been intended. But it was a great experience, looking back on it. And the contractors were there every day, and the school staff.
Every day? Did we get that? They were there every day.
Maybe not at the weekends.
round of applause for that, yeah.
And then we had lots of debates like, shall we take that wall down? No, we can't take that wall down. No, that's going to cause a problem. So it was fun, and we were all on site, and we were able to live the experience together, I think. Architects, contractors, school staff. We were out there all the time trying to make it work together.
So something very empowering about something as simple as a wall can make such a big difference, but also the idea that there is resource available, and if people are welcome or they feel like that they belong, people can do amazing things together.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Mark, I'm going to bring you in now. Perhaps could I ask you about what you feel has been the impact on the children themselves and the wider community? You know, what kind of things do they say to you, or what stories do you hear from them about when they're using the spaces?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to encompass that in such a short space of time, but the children are inspired by it. You've heard the stories about how this grew and how so many different elements came together, either by design or by misfortune because of the pandemic, and people making the best out of it. But what we see as a result is that our children love being in that space. It sounds a bit cliche, but there is a lot of love that has gone into this building. I know that Tom and Percy have put their heart and soul into it. That's grown, and the children are really benefiting from that. So for them, it's an inspirational place to go. They can leave their classrooms and go into a little oasis in the middle of Hackney. Yeah.
So have you noticed a real difference in the way that they not just interact with the building and the landscape, but with each other?
Yeah, definitely. So if you think about playtime, your stereotypical playtime, you'll see the multi-use games area where it's all about football for most of the children, and there are lots of children who are very passionate about football. Those children who are not so passionate about football at break time, they often don't have as much on offer. We try our best, but the School of Food and the gardens have completely transformed that. So those children who you might find trying to find a quiet space, they now go and find Lidcombe and Tom. They go and hang out with the chickens, they look after the chickens. Those chickens are more like pets than your regular chicken, by the way. And it's transformed their lives, literally.
And what's been your experience as a teacher, and what's been the experience of your staff in terms of, you know, being able to use this, what sounds like and is an absolutely transformative space?
Well, before I answer that question, I have to say that all the staff across Leap and especially at Mandeville are amazing. So they do their best to provide the very best for the children. But having amazing resources makes a difference. So when we challenge teachers to be more creative with their lessons and to bring in cross-curricular elements to their lessons, English takes you to the School of Food, Design and Technology takes you to the School of Food, PE takes you to the School of Food. It influences almost everything we do, and that's because when children are happy, they take in more information, they learn more, and the School of Food provides that for us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those stories. Big round of applause. Thank you. So now I'm delighted to invite our other guests back onto the stage. We're going to have a short Q&A now, so please come up to the stage. Henry, Tom, Percy, and Jess. I'm not going to sit in the middle, otherwise it's going to feel like question time. So I'm just going to sort of manoeuvre over here, if that's okay. There we go. Just to set the scene, we've got about 15-20 minutes, okay? And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, and I'm going to come to you to the floor. We have some roving mics. Matthew's already got his hand up. Please, let's. There we go. Please, yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, everyone. It was a really, really interesting and uplifting talk. I'm Matthew Goldschmied from the Marco Goldschmied Foundation, and it's a question for Tom and Percy. Have you got any thoughts on the significance of the Stephen Lawrence Prize within the profession and what it might mean to you? For what it's worth, you guys would have qualified for the new criteria this year for the basically younger architect, so don't worry about it. Yeah, I'd love your thoughts on that, if you could.
To be completely honest, it's been such a kind of proud... It's our highlight of the studio, winning the prize for this project, no doubt. And we had a lovely moment on the night where it was announced, the same night as the Sterling Prize. Neil McLaughlin kind of came up to us and said, I remember we won the Stephen Lawrence Prize way back, and I'm not quite sure we're going to go on to win the Sterling Prize. But I'd like to think it's really held up as one of the most significant prizes on offer in the architectural world. And I think because of Stephen's legacy, it just means so much to us as a small practice to have won it. So I think it's also lovely that the new criteria is going to kind of even more so focus on emerging studios. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of fantastic emerging architecture studios out there. So it's nice when there are awards that kind of specifically recognize those studios.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much. Right, let's see who's next. I'm looking around the room. If you want to wave, stand up. We're getting a wave there. Yes, please, over to you.
Hi, my name is Mira Nash. I'm from Belong Studio. Congratulations to the whole team. I think it's a really inspirational, fantastic project. My question is money. All schools struggle with money and funding, and as a parent, I know that too well. And as with inspirational project, how do you see beyond sort of the monetary value of the project? And you clearly had a vision of it adding social value. How did you source the funding, and how did you make it happen?
That's a great question. Who? Louise, Mark, maybe? Yes?
I'll have a go.
Please, yeah.
So we started with an empty wallet, so to speak. We had an idea, as you heard, and then we got the architects on board when we really didn't know where the funding was going to come from, I think it's fair to say. But because we had their drawings, because we had the idea, the social purpose idea, which was marketable, the charity chefs in schools, and the League Federation went out and used every avenue, every grant that we could apply for until we had enough money to at least start the build. And the thing I know I've got some school governors here, and the thing I didn't admit completely at the time was we didn't have all the money in place when we started the build. We did get it by the end, and it was fine. But it isn't easy, especially with schools with squeezed budgets at the moment. We've got plenty of people here who know how that is affecting schools. But the difference with the School of Food, and the great thing about it is that it's self-funding. So the schools that come to the School of Food for lessons pay for their lessons. Those lessons in turn pay for the staffing of the School of Food. It works. It's just about works. It works really hard. It's a complicated mix. We also do corporate events, and we do events for like team building events. If you want to bring your team down to the School of Food and have a wonderful cookery lesson and do a bit of gardening while you're there, we do all of that. And as a result, we bring the money in, which pays for the staffing, which keeps the School of Food alive and keeps it going. And that's how we've done it. But initially, it was about trying for every grant you could apply for, every bit of funding, every donor, every person. And I think Henry might also be able to add.
Yes, I was going to say, Henry, perhaps you could follow up on that and perhaps mention something about how we can sort of engender or kind of encourage the politicians or the governance to kind of come on board as well.
Well, one of the things that we're now, when you raise money for things, there's a kind of, you are, as Louise said, you're always trying to make something real before it even exists. So the first thing is kind of to take a story and tell a story that people can put their heart and their wallets into. But what's exciting about this prize is one of the things that we had wanted to do, we'd talked to the Standard about it, is try and create a fund where, say, we get someone to fund 20 schools, or half fund 20 schools, so that there's something that the school had to do some work, and then have a competition. We're talking to people at the moment, because I think the combination of having this existing, be able to show people films of it, bring them, the Stephen Lawrence Prize, it all adds up, and also now everyone knows that this is such a big issue for society. I think there's an opportunity, again, to spread the good virus, to give it a little bit more seed by raising a 20 million quid fund or something, and that would do what, 60 schools? So
there's absolute collateral here, isn't there?
Yeah, you've got
three-way story.
Real. And there are the, as Louise says, there are these houses sitting empty all over the country. So there's a real opportunity there.
We need a TV show, don't we? That often helps, I've found. If in doubt.
Could you do dens? Could you do caretakers?
We could do that, yeah. We could do that. Absolutely. Yeah, great question. And at the back, yes?
My name's Johnny Shaw from Ritchie Studio. It's really nice to see the Stephen Lawrence Prize. 25 years later, our practice was the original recipients of it back in 1998. And what's just great to see now is looking at Tom Percy here, thinking, has this transformed your practice since winning this? Has it opened up new opportunities? And how could you now, under the new criteria, given you are young architects, give the motivational speech now to any new young architects in the audience that actually would want to try and inspire to win this prize?
Great question. So kind of you're doing your own PR pitch now. Okay, this is your chance.
It's been great for our practice to get the publicity through the prize, and I think it's such an important prize within the architectural world. And the great thing about the Stephen Lawrence Prize is it permeates from the architectural world into the real world, and so I mean. We're always looking for opportunities to do projects like this again. At the moment, by developing the toolkit to help other people do it, hopefully we'll be invited to help out on some of those projects if people take them up. it's not quite transformed our practice just yet, but we feel like there is a process there, and we're kind of trying to capitalise on it.
Okay, well, I'm going to take one more question from the audience, and if I may, I'm going to ask a couple of questions as well. Yeah, okay, it's okay. We've got one at the back first.
I wanted to ask Jessica, because it's everybody who's involved in this project, quite how much this prize means to us. And I wondered, from a point of view of the foundation, why do you think it was that this project was selected, and what does it kind of mean from the other side?
You know, it's really interesting because as a team, Charlotte, my colleague, and I don't get as directly involved in the prize as we would like to, although I think we'll probably change that after this evening. It's been so exciting. But Baroness Lawrence holds the selection process really personally close. And I think hearing about the original recipients of the prize being in the same room, the power of that is about the tenure of Stephen's legacy, what has been achieved over the last 30 years and what might be achieved in the next 30 years. And so I think learning more about the project in preparation for this evening, I think what was really striking for me was the parallels, this idea of taking something that is painful and difficult and repurposing it and using it as inspiration for the future. And so that's the significance of for me, and just Baroness Lawrence's involvement. I think sometimes we think about diversity from a kind of moral obligation perspective, but actually diversity is about diversity of thought, diversity of experience, and Baroness Lawrence's voice on the panel and in the architecture space more broadly has been about inviting people who will use these buildings in to talk about what it means to them and what their experience of it is, not necessarily from an academic perspective, but from a real lived experience perspective. And I think that's the extraordinary value that she has brought to the prize, and it's added personal value back to her in terms of keeping Stephen's name alive and bringing us all together.
Thank you. One more question from
Can I
the
just
audience.
jump in on that?
Yes, of course you can.
Something I didn't get to say to Baroness Lawrence when she visited the school was to let her know how much she'd influenced me. Yeah. So I was 18 at the time when Stephen's life was tragically taken. So I've only spoken to Louise about this. So to know that, to be involved, the work that Tom and Percy have done, for the School of Food to win the Stephen Lawrence Prize, knowing that she's influenced my life to get to the position I'm in right now through the work she's done, was really powerful for me. I didn't get a chance to talk to her about that at the time because it wasn't the right space, but if you can share that with her for me, that'd be appreciated.
Thank you so much.
We've got one last question from at the back. At the back? Is that the next one? Well, it's up to you. It's your gig. I don't mind. We can stay here all night. But two more. We'll have two more.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Glenda Gaspard. I'm a Part 1 graduate, and the project is really inspiring. Like, you can really see how it speaks to the school and the children. And I think Henry mentioned how you, Tom, and Percy, like, you subverted your egos. And I guess my question is to you both, how do you approach really encompassing the voices of the community, the teachers, even the children, and also balancing that with your own creative flair?
Yeah, I'll have a go at that one. Well, it was really, the brief building process on this project was really interesting because it wasn't something that had necessarily been done before. And the brief was actually a fairly substantial brief. I think it was 6 or 7 pages, quite a lot of detail, but it was very broad. So I remember at the start of the project having these design workshops, and I think that with Louise and the team, and talking to kids, talking to members of the local community, and I think to be honest, it just kind of came out of that process in those first few months of trying to figure out, okay, how do we turn this broad idea into quite a tight, deliverable brief? We haven't really touched on it yet, but it was delivered for only just over 300,000 for the whole project, which in a way, kind of the fact that COVID came along afterwards was difficult, but I think truthfully, if we were trying to deliver it now for that same budget, it would be impossible. So in a way, it was kind of lucky that it snuck in before there. But it was just trying to figure it out in those early workshops, and as I mentioned earlier, trying to get the kind of maximum impact for the minimum spend. That was the approach.
Thank you so much. We've got one final question at the back. mic is just moving its way to the back.
Hello, good evening.
Right, okay, we've got, right, no problem. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, please.
Marie Wren Bouchereau from Greg City Academy. So my question is, this passionate project that is so inspiring, how can we get a hold of this formula? How can we spread the word to the rest of the country? Where do I get this information from? How do I spread it to my school?
Well, there's a QR code on our presentation, which has a link to the toolkit that we've developed with LEAP and Chefs in Schools, which has as much information as you need about how we got to, how we delivered the School of Food. There's a lot of lessons learned in there. And yeah, I mean, also you're very welcome to get in touch with us and Chefs in Schools and the LEAP Federation to ask any questions about how we can help.
You can take a message on Instagram, yeah?
Slip into the
DMs.
DMs, yeah.
Okay, we've got one question here at the front.
Thank you. More a comment. So my name is Councillor Antoinette Brown. I'm Deputy Mayor of Hackney, so really proud of all that's been going on. You know, Henry is leading the charge on this piece of work, and a resident, and then Louise and Mark leading the school. I think I'm really impressed to see that the award has gone to a project that's gone to the heart of the community. And that's really transformative. And I suppose, and you, as a designers, to really encapsulate what the Hackney community not would only thrive from, but needed. So I suppose my ploy really is architects in the building, you know, when you engulf on your next piece of work, have a think about the community, not just the brilliant piece of work that you will make, which you can do because you're all talented in that space, but understand when you go to the heart of the community, you transform people's lives. I mean, the school, the resources that the children use and working with Chefs in Schools, children are learning tools in a really fun and unique way, and they take it home and they share that with their parents. So literally, you've got generational teaching through this opportunity. It's transformative. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That has been an absolutely wonderful evening. I feel very privileged to have been here to be part of this event. I just want to say a little bit about the power of architecture and the idea that as future designers that we need to develop our listening skills and we need to develop our skills of trying to better understand the people that we might work with. What's been fascinating about tonight is that we can see that when like-minded people enter the space and they respect each other and they give time and they hear the voices of those others that they're working with, whether it's the person who built the building or the person who designed it or the person who commissioned it or the person who can advocate at the highest level, it is totally possible to create absolutely wonderful pieces, not just of architecture, but legacies that will last the test of time. And I think there's a real lesson from this evening that if everybody just listens a bit more and they trust each other, as this wonderful team have done, we can get absolutely amazing results. So I just want to say a huge thanks to Jessica, Tom, Percy, James, Louise, Henry and Mark for your engagement tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you. Big thanks to Carolinda and Bea and the wonderful team here at the RIBA, including all the technical team who've made it an absolute pleasure to be here. And a special thank you to all of you for being here and being participants in this event.
Yes, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
As always, one has another half who gives one a prompt when one is on the way to the said prompt. But thank you so much. That is very, very kind. And also, just before we wrap it up, Henry has a wonderful book called Ravenous, which is called How to Get Ourselves ourselves into shape and our planet into shape. And I am awaiting a signed copy. Thank you so much. Thank you.